Hello, good evening and welcome. I'm KARIMA Brown and you're watching Political Exchange, where we unpack Africa's political economy. In just about 10 months, South Africans will go again to the polls to vote in the 20th year of South Africa's democracy. Already political parties are getting into gear to do battle and to take South Africans to the polls. Political Exchange will be chatting with all of the parties to look at their policies and strategies. And tonight my guest is the Deputy Secretary General of the ruling African National Congress, JESSIE DUARTE. Thank you so much and welcome to Political Exchange.
Thank you very much, KARIMA.
Now, of course, the time is very short and very tight, and we know that all parties are already gearing up. Give us the kind of scope of the ANC's campaign. I know that you've already kicked off with your volunteers. Tell us a little bit more about what you're doing in the various provinces.
First of all, the ANC has decided that we will fight on every front. So that means that our machine has been established in every ward of the country, which is over 4,866 areas of the country where we already have built a presence. We've resuscitated our branch election teams, consisting mainly of volunteers, people who voluntarily come forward and are trained to carry the message of the ANC into every household. Naturally, in a country like South Africa, there are constraints. We in cities like Johannesburg, where there are gated communities, these are very difficult to engage.
I can't imagine someone coming behind their high wall to listen to a canvasser.
No, absolutely not. However, we've covered that. We will be making extensive use of social media. We will also be making extensive use of advertising campaigns, of various modes of contacting voters with our message. Our message is going to be positive. We have a very good story to tell. In the 20 years since South Africa has been a democracy, we looked at what our achievements here. We've built more homes in this country than there are citizens of Lesotho, Swaziland and Botswana combined.
JESSIE, I just wanted to come in there. Of course, the 20th year is a very big issue, and many analysts have looked at the African National Congress and looked at its peers on the continent. It is generally around about this time where liberation or former liberation movements start experiencing problems around issues of legitimacy, issues of accountability and so on. And of course, a lot has been said about the kind of public protests that we've been seeing in various townships around the pace of delivery. To what extent is the ANC alive to the idea that many of the voters, first-time voters, would not have had experience of apartheid?
Sure, KARIMA, I think this particular election, there are about 9 million South Africans who have not registered ever as voters, and who are between the ages of 18 and 35, young, mainly black people, who are very well educated people and have been the people who have received most of the benefits of what freedom could bring: the openness of the universities, the right to education, which is which we have been able to make sure has happened through the fights that we had, and including the fact that we 2 days or 3 days away from June 76, the sacrifices made by people of the June 76 brigade. We are going to go after those voters. We are going to speak to them. We're talking to them about job creation, about the fact that we have a work accord that was signed in April this year at Hector Peterson Memorial, where Labour and government, as well as the labour unions, had agreed on the skills profile that we require in this country, and business has accepted the responsibility to some extent of skilling young people for the workplace, to accelerate what's being done in FET colleges, at universities and at technicons, including opening space in the workplace for young people to enter. I mean, one issue is that young people have said to us, but we don't even have a place to send a CV to, because we don't have money for faxes and so on. We're dealing with that. We're setting up through NGOs places in communities where young people can go to and send a CV. but also career guidance. A lot of ANC branches are out there talking to young people about how to put together a CV, how to look for the right kind of job. So legitimacy is a question. Many liberation movements have faced. But I think we also say to our constituency and the people of South Africa, the ANC has grown since 1994. We now have 1.4 million members. And the caliber of people joining the ANC are improving over and over, and they're much younger. And more educated.
I wanted to come to the question of young people as a variable, because the continent is young. We've seen in the Kenyan election, for example, how critical and how pivotal young people are. And in South Africa, of course, they're the largest voting bloc, but they also bear the brunt of the inequalities in our country. We have youth unemployment that is double the rate of general unemployment. And of course, the ANC has been governing for 20 years. And some ANC ministers have said, it's time for us to accept responsibility. We can't go back to blaming apartheid for our problems. I wanted to hear from you. How do you message an ANC message of having been in power for 20 years, but still having to deal with inequalities, joblessness, poverty? And how do you get to explain to young people your inability to deliver as fast as many people would expect you to do so?
Karima, I think the ANC is, South Africa is not an island. We live in a global economic world where there are real global issues that over the past 20 years have impacted on the global economy. Our country's potential growth has always been based on our tertiary and primary sectors of our economy, which is mining and manufacturing. We have taken as much of a knock as any other developing country has taken in terms of our capacity to provide minerals or produced goods that go to other sectors of economic growth places. So yes, our economy has not grown as fast as we would want it to grow, and it's growing slower. At 2.5% is a very slow growing economy, but we're growing in the right direction. And we are saying to young people, we have also graduated more skilled people in this country in the past 20 years than ever before in 300 years of our existence. So more skilled people are emerging for less jobs in the economic space. We're saying to young people that what we then need to do is to skill ourselves for the current economic climate in our country. And that's why the work and job creation of young people accord, which has been signed in April, is so important.
But a lot of people will argue, Jessie, that the issue around the wage subsidy is something that the ANC is stumbling around. The DA certainly has presented the wage subsidy as one way of fast-tracking young people into the economy. The ANC seems to be speaking, different languages at different times. You have some people saying, yes, the youth subsidy is a good thing, like the Treasury, and then, of course, other members of the party saying something else. How do you present one message to young people?
The message is around the fact that we have an agreement on the table which was knocked together at Nedlek between the government, Labour and business. And the ANC stands by that accord and that agreement. Whatever our different views might be as a society, we have an accord. As a nation, we have an agreement. That agreement was not brokered by the Democratic Alliance. It was brokered by the ANC-led government, and we're not going to run a negative campaign. So we're not going to respond to your question of how good or how bad the DA is doing. We're only interested in how we are doing and what the challenges are that our country faces as an ANC-led government, and those challenges are many. Employment is not essentially only a responsibility of our government. The private sector is our partner in this regard, and we are meeting the private sector. We're talking to them about how much expansion they can take, how much risk can they take in the current conditions of the global economy and our own economic growth rate. And I must say that the private sector has been very willing to speak about how far they can go. We have one of the most dynamic financial sectors in Africa, and we have one of the most competent financial sectors in the world. And that's where most of the growth potential in terms of job creation lies. And this is the conversation we are having as the ANC with business. And we're willing to go much more than the ordinary mile. Mm-hmm. We're willing to go way beyond that perspective, as well as the assurance that the government will use state-owned enterprises to create more jobs, and through the infrastructure development program create many, many more short-term jobs, yes, but long-term skills. Mm-hmm. And so the ANC is not looking back, KARIMA. We're looking way forward into the future.
Of course, the middle class is the group of people that everyone is focusing on. Many people are saying that the South African democratic story in many ways hinges on how this class reacts to 20 years of democracy. Mm. Some people have predicted that the ANC will have problems in places like Gauteng with highly urbanized communities, particularly because the middle class is being squeezed by the deficiencies in the state, that they have to kind of carry the financial, responsibility of coming to the party. What is the ANC's message to this group of people, and are you actively going to seek their vote?
KARIMA, the issues that challenge any middle class in the current economic perspective has been the question of HIV and AIDS.
Right.
We've dealt with that question. We've actually reduced HIV and AIDS significantly in this country. We've improved the mortality rate of South Africans from 55 to 60 at the moment, which is an incredible achievement for a developing country. We've done extremely well in making sure that the basic service delivery perspective of our middle class is achieved. There's no middle class person in South Africa that doesn't have clean running water, that doesn't have electricity, that doesn't have sanitation. There's no middle class person whose children are not at school, or where the universities are not open for any child whose family can afford to send them to a higher education institution for further education. There's no middle class person who hasn't got access to health care in South Africa at the moment. So part of the challenge we face is that our successes have also become some of the challenge that we have to.
And of course the big thing is extending those services to the bulk of the ANC's voters, Absolutely. Which is the working class and the poor.
Exactly. And so our concern right now is, we understand that the big question in the mind of a middle class South African is, so what's next?
Right.
You've done all this, what more can I expect from you? And the more that they can expect from us is that we will continue to grow this country into a formidable country, into a country that does deliver in every possible way. And here we are saying that the National Development Plan, despite the differences we might have in some elements of it, is the plan that takes our country forward. And we're saying, we're talking to the business community and we're saying, here's a plan that works. It is a plan that was put on the table by an ANC-led government. And we're asking the middle class to say, we support that plan. And we're going out there to present that plan to the middle class. It is an ANC-led government plan. It is a plan that will work. It is a plan that will make the country grow and prosper. Middle class, by its definition, has always been a class of people who expect more, much, much more. In that middle class is a huge constituency of ANC people who support the ANC. And there is a 16% of that middle class that does not support the ANC, never has and never will.
So you're not going to go out of your way to convince them, is that what you're saying?
We're not leaving that 16% to anybody else.
Okay,
we're saying we're going to fight for that 16%.